It's January, the time for New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
And I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Out of all the New Year's resolutions that you've set, what would you say is the percentage of those that you've actually achieved?
Probably in the 15 to 20% range.
Yeah, and that's being generous because for me it's like maybe 10%.
Yeah,
maybe
honest,
20.
If I was honest, it probably would be.
If
10 to 20.
I was really killing it, maybe I got a fifth of them done. and I feel like that's kind of a common theme. Everybody sets New Year's resolutions and then just kind of moves on with their lives because it makes you feel good. Like new year, new me.
Yeah, I would always
And then
have
you
a
move
list
forward.
and I'd put it in my Evernote and I'm going to look at it every day. And like 8 months later, I made that and never look at it.
Yeah, or do like Michael Hyatt's best year ever and have this big system and then you're like, you just move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the same way for everybody. The question is it just the fact that we just don't have self-control? Are we just not self-disciplined enough to achieve it? And I believe the answer is no, actually. I think there are some fundamental flaws in the way that we set our goals that makes them kind of unmanageable to achieve. So we want to help you guys set your goals in a way that's going to make them not just achievable, but long-term sustainable.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about that over the next few weeks and all that and more on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you get out of survival mode and into living a life that you can be proud of. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And the theme for this week and the following weeks will be goals. Because the truth is, everyone's New Year's resolutions are on the struggle bus.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it is at this point, and we want to help you guys get off of the struggle bus. In fact, it's a big trend right now to kind of acknowledge that goals are getting more irrelevant at the New Year's season.
Yeah.
There's actually been an article by Forbes, and they were studying this very trend. And they were saying this, this is a quote, "Failing at New Year's resolutions is so common that there's even a slew of unofficial dates commemorating such failures. There's Ditch New Year's Resolution Day on January 17th, while others denote the second Friday in January as Quitter's Day."
Quitter's Day.
Quitter's Day, man. We're going to make a whole new holiday.
That's right, because quitters quit.
Pacifier.
Yes.
Great quote. Another poll by Forbes found that the average resolution lasts less than 4 months, 3.74 months to be exact. Only 8% of people that took the survey stuck with their goals for a whole month, while 22% lasted for 2 months and 13% lasted 4 months, 22% lasted 3 months. So just making it to 4 months is a big thing. You know, it's a big achievement in a way, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, and you see that in people. I think what happens is when you set goals and then you don't achieve them, you set them again, you don't achieve them. The bad thing is it just makes it where you get kind of cynical.
Yeah, it starts a cycle.
Yeah, and you see that in people. Oh, I don't set resolutions. I'm not. And so what they're saying is I can't, so I'm not going to try. Instead of I'm going to try something different, I'm going to do it a different way. I think the beginning of the year is a great time to rethink your life and rethink, what do I want to change? But a lot of people just get so cynical because they failed, so they just stop.
Yeah, I think what we've learned from the failure of most of us to achieve our New Year's resolutions is that goals are good. They are clearly not enough on their own.
Yeah.
Goals are one piece of a bigger system.
Yeah.
If you just have a goal, it's like only putting one leg on a chair and just trying to balance on that one leg.
It's a little tough.
Yeah, you may be able to stay up for a while, but eventually you're going to get tired. And on a rough day or an unbalanced day, you're going to slip and fall. And that chair is no longer going to do its job. That's kind of how our approach to goals is right now. And what we want to help you guys do as our listeners is to put other legs on the chair to where it's not just the one leg that's goals. We want to get a couple more legs on there so that the chair can become stable and something that is long-term. So, Dad, tell them about the first leg we're going to add to that chair. We've got goals. What's the second?
Yeah, the first leg we want to add is the strategy. And I think a lot of people, when they set goals, they don't think of, what is my strategy for this? The goal is the what. And we all have the what. I want to lose weight. I want to get better at this. I want to make more money or whatever. The strategy is the how. And a lot of people don't really focus on the how. They just set a goal. And what happens is when you have a strategy, it's going to take your goal and really make it more doable. In fact, the Michael Hyatt system talks about a SMART goal, that's specific, that's measurable, that's actionable, and all those. And what that really is just a strategy. It's you coming up with a strategy of how am I going to do this goal? Because a lot of us set goals, we set resolutions. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And that's all we do. We don't really have a strategy, and that makes it to where we're probably going to fail.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the flaw with the SMART goal method, it's a good way of establishing goals, but it in of itself does not explain how you're going to get to that goal.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can make your goal specific, measurable, and time bound. You can say I want to lose 100 pounds by 2 weeks from now. You can be as specific as you want, but that doesn't mean that it actually has been placed in reality. And I think that's a huge takeaway we want you as men to walk away with is strategy brings our goals into reality.
The strategy, what it does is it focuses our goal on something specific, and it takes away the glamour of the goal. We all get excited about our goals.
Yes.
I'm going to lose weight. This is the year I'm going to do it. And we're very excited about it, and it's very glamorous and very pretty. But then 2 weeks from now, on a Tuesday afternoon when you get home from work and you're tired, you don't care about the goal. You don't care about the glamour of the goal. You don't care. So what we have to do is when we strategize, we kind of take the shine off it and say, what's the nuts and bolts behind this goal being achievable?
Right. I agree. Because for example, if you want to learn a language, let's say your goal is to learn Spanish. The strategy becomes, okay, how much time do you need to put towards that goal every day?
Yep.
And that makes it very realistic. Or if you want to get closer to your wife, the strategy becomes, okay, what happens in the everyday that I can do for her? What happens on your average week? Your average Friday, does it look like a date? Does it look like, and you start looking at real possibilities. It takes this lofty ideal and makes it something you can put your hands on.
Yeah, and that's what happens a lot of times. We keep our goals in this ethereal kind of cloud-based place without getting into the nuts and bolts. And it makes us feel good. The thing about setting goals, it's not a bad thing, is you feel good when you set a goal. You're like, I'm going to do something. So mentally, a lot of times, just setting the goal kind of moves your body in that way. The problem is we don't move past the setting of the goal and we don't get into the concrete. And that means the goal's most likely not going to happen. So what we're saying is you want to come to your goal with a strategy. You want to come with something that brings it into reality. If you want to learn a language, some people come in, I'm going to learn 5 languages this year. But then they look at the reality of, okay, I barely know English. How am I going to learn another language? Well, they get into the reality of it, makes them go, maybe I need to say I want to get better at one language or I want to get conversational in this language and just pick one. That's what a strategy does because we look at the reality of how is this going to happen and then we can say, okay, this is how I'm going to bring this about.
Yeah, I like that you said picking goals is good and we don't set goals poorly on purpose.
No.
We just don't think about it. It sounds really good to say, I'm going to learn 5 languages this year. That's impressive. That is an impressive goal if you achieve it. However, the truth is if you talk to anyone who's learning a language, learning 5 at the same time is unachievable. There's just no way. It's better to think about that up front and nix 4 of the languages and focus on one rather than getting to month 2 and saying, I'm quitting all of them.
And that's what it is. Strategy, when you come up with a strategy for your goal, it forces you to really think about it. What's the reality of how is this going to happen? If I want to learn a new language, am I going to use an app? Am I going to get a coach? Am I going to join some program? How much time am I going to develop in it? Is it going to be a 10-minute, 20-minute a day? And that is something that you kind of look at with the reality of your life. And that's where a lot of people mess up. They set goals, but they don't really deal with, okay, what's in my life?
Yep.
And that's what strategy does. It brings all that together to you're like, okay, I need something that I can do that's manageable. And that forces you to think about what's the reality behind this goal. I'm not saying set low goals. I'm just saying sometimes we set goals that are outside, the orbit of the earth.
Of possibility.
Yeah, and we're just saying maybe set a goal that's in the clouds or in the upper atmosphere that you can get to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the truth is like when you look at someone who's driving to achieve their goals, they're giving a lot.
Yeah.
They're working hard. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But having it and knowing the reality up front can be very helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a friend actually right now who is really doing work to lose weight, and he's doing a great job.
Doing a good job.
And it is taking a lot of work. It's very real life. You deal with hunger. You deal with, I don't feel like doing it today, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
He's living that reality. So it's good that we go ahead and prepare ourselves for that reality before stepping into it, instead of just not purposefully, but kind of walking in ignorance of like, oh, it'll be easy. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes you kind of come up with those steps and those what you want to do. And so that's what we want to do is kind of look at it as, okay, what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now? And that's one thing Michael Hyatt does talk about in he talked about the messy middle, when you don't feel it, when you're not doing it, but that's where strategy helps you because you don't focus on the big goal. You focus on what's my next step within the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the second thing that strategy really helps us with is it shows us not only the reality of it and makes it a little bit less glamorous, it shows us the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because when you come up with a strategy, it forces you to face practical realities.
Yeah, and that's what we mentioned earlier, but it kind of, you take the goal and you say, how does this fit my life? So like if you want to train for a marathon and you decide, okay, if I want to train for a marathon, that's a long way of running. So 26 miles of running. So I need to start building up. So you do research. You look into how people train for marathons, how long it takes. If you're going from sitting on the couch to running a marathon, you think, okay, it's going to take us at least 6 months. I'm going to have to do this many hours of training. But then you look at your life. I work 50, 60 hours a week. I've got small children. I've got all these obligations. I've got outside obligations. You may look at it and go, maybe a half marathon is better for me.
Right.
Well, it's better to know that up front and decide that than to get halfway through your training and then just quit. And then you feel like a failure. You feel like, well, I'm never going to reach my goals. No, you just set a goal that was kind of impossible in your life right now.
Yeah.
You just didn't have the time to train. So if you set a half marathon goal, that's 13 miles. You're like, okay, that's a little more doable. And you achieve that goal, what's going to happen? You're going to feel better, and you're going to build up some self-discipline muscles, some other muscles that maybe next year you can do a marathon.
Yeah.
But what happens is you begin to see how you can bring it into your everyday life. You see the realism of it, and that's what helps you plan it and make it happen. And sometimes maybe see, okay, maybe I've bitten off a little more than I can chew. Let me change my goal rather than I just quit. I just can't do it.
Yeah, you're doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
You're intentionally dialing back up front because really what you're doing is being compassionate towards your future self.
Yeah.
And here's the truth, guys. Your future self is a human being. He's not Superman. And as much as we like to think that in 6 months we're going to be Superman and we're going to be able to wake up at 4 a.m., get a 3-hour workout in, then go read for an hour and somehow still take our kids to school. That's just not going to happen. So let's be real with our future self, because the trouble is a lot of guys trap themselves in a cycle of saying, oh, I give up. Because ironically, the same goal can be seen as achieving or giving up. Like, for example, learning a new language. Let's say you go, I want to get conversational in Korean. Well, that's going to take a lot of work, but it's going to be good. But if you start out the year saying, I'm going to learn Korean and Spanish, and then by the end of the year, you've only learned Korean, you're seeing the very thing that could be a huge win as a huge loss.
Yeah, you see yourself as a failure. And sometimes we set ourselves up as men because we like goals. We like to think big. And there's a term, a BHAG. It's the big, hairy, audacious goal. It's from Good to Great. It's a great business book. But that's for a business. And a lot of times we think, well, I should do that in my life. Well, there's a place for that. But you want to be careful that you don't set a goal that doesn't have a corporation behind it. You're one person. You've only got so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that your obligations are being taken care of. So you want to set a goal that can fit into your day. People say, well, you should set a goal that pushes you. I'm not saying it shouldn't push you, but a big, hairy, audacious goal is a corporate goal. It's got a company behind it, a bunch of people working on it. You're one person. You want to set a goal that fits you. It should push you, but it should also fit your life, and then where you can work it in and actually manage it. And then you don't feel like the failure when you don't reach it. And a lot of guys get that way and they never do it again. I'm never going to set a goal. I just quit because I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. The truth is, any goal is going to involve sacrifice. Another way you can think of it is every goal is a trade-off. You are going to trade time.
Yeah.
You are going to trade effort. You are going to trade focus to achieve something. And the question is, what are you willing to put and sacrifice? And what is worth that sacrifice to you? Those are questions to ask up front.
Yeah.
Don't wait until afterwards to say, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, to go scriptural, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Yeah.
Even when you're setting the goal, this is worth it, so I'm going to give it my all.
Yeah.
Versus, this is a cool idea, and there's no thought behind it, so you give up on it.
Yeah, and that's when you come up with a strategy, really thinking through what all's behind this, how it's going to happen, how am I going to fit it in my life. So as you go into it, you're a little more wide-eyed. You've taken the shine off the goal, and you've looked at the practical of this is going to be the cost. And that's a good thing, because then it's more likely you're going to do it and achieve it because you've actually thought about it up front.
Yeah. I mean, imagine a carpenter who's like, I want to build a new thing I've never built before. Let me do no research and just wing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that going to turn out?
Yeah.
You know, a guy's like, I'm going to build a wardrobe. Yeah, I got it. And then they get like halfway into it and are like, this is way more complicated than I thought.
Yeah.
Forget it. They throw away all that material. They throw away all that work and that time they put into it because they didn't do a little bit of work up front.
Yeah.
To say, okay, what pieces am I going to need?
Yeah.
What are some of the best designs out there? How can I take that and apply it to what I want to do? What am I even building this for?
Yeah.
You know, all of those kind of questions up front can really yield a lot of power to you in the long term.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one of the things that as we do that as men, I think we feel more empowered.
Yeah.
Because we know this is what it's going to take. This is going to be the sacrifice I have to make. And I think for men, they feel empowered with that knowledge. And when you rob yourself of that, when you're not strategizing, you're just kind of keeping it as a dream, but there's no discipline to it.
Yeah.
And if there's no discipline, it's not going to be a reality. It's going to stay a dream. You'll think about it every January, but you'll never achieve it.
Give the plate illustration to kind of apply to that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Okay. The plate illustration is you can only fit so much on the plate.
Oh,
so
yeah.
anytime that you add something on the plate, you have to take something off. And that's the truth with goals.
It is.
If
That's a
you
good point.
usually at the end of each day have about an hour to yourself to finally sit down, to finally rest, to finally relax, to
Yeah.
play your video game or watch your sport, whatever that thing is, and you want to learn a new language or you want to get to exercising, guess what's going to disappear? That hour to yourself.
Yeah.
So if you have that plate mentality, am I willing? How much am I willing to take off
Yeah.
to put this on? Because you can't just keep duct taping new stuff onto the plate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings us really to the third area, which when you stick to your strategy, here's what happens. It's going to make that goal something that's achievable and sustainable.
That's true.
And that's the key. That's why we're doing it from this approach. A bunch of people set goals and a bunch of people don't reach them. We've seen that. But when you get in and you get to the strategy, you're figuring your goal, you're thinking it out. What you're doing is you're getting an actionable plan that you can follow to actually make that goal come about. And what's going to happen is you're going to build up things in your life where you can sustain it on and on. And that's why the strategy is so important. You know, you don't have to only focus on the goal. You say, okay, let's say you want to lose weight. I want to lose 15 pounds. And you say, well, I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay, well, what are you going to do? If you don't have a strategy, you're not going to know what to do. But if you say, okay, I'm going to lose 15 pounds, so I'm going to get an app like the Carbon app, and I'm going to follow that app for the food. I'm going to work on my macros. I'm going to stick to the eating plan, and I'm going to do 45 minutes 3 times a week of working out. I'm going to walk for that. And then I'm going to, listen to podcasts and books during that time. Right there, you just have a strategy. You've talked about your eating, you've talked about your exercise, and you've built a plan. So in the middle of it, you can just work your plan. And if you work the plan right, you're going to lose weight. And you're most likely going to hit that goal.
And it keeps you from that, we've talked about this on the show before, that all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
To where you're like, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. So, classic example from you, I'm just going to eat 2 eggs every 2 hours. And that's all I'm going to eat for the next 60 days. And so by that point, not only are you not going to stick with it, but even if you do, you haven't built up the habits to keep you there. Because you haven't thought of a strategy.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do is they stare at the strategy. They don't come up with something creative because it's different. Every man's going to look at it different. You might be able to work out in your garage and you incorporate that. It might be a thing for you that is simple as I'm not going to eat out lunch as much. Or as a family, we're only going to eat out, 3 to 4 times a month. That can help you toward those goals of losing weight.
Hugely.
And you stay away from the weird diets or those things that a lot of people get on these multi-level things where, I'm going to pay for this. We'll do, 5 shakes a day and then 1 meal and all this. And that's fine. The problem is what happens when you get off that? What are you going to do to sustain it? Whereas if you do the other, you've worked a strategy, you've built it up, you find that, I can incorporate a lot of these elements into my life. So the goal achieves its purpose. Goals are not just about reaching the goal.
Right.
It's about changing us. It's about making us better. And so when you have a strategy and you work it, you're growing the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the physical muscles you need to actually grow and be better in every area of your life.
And that's exactly right. The whole point of goals, they are a vehicle. They are a means to an end.
Yeah.
It's much more about direction than where you're at this exact moment in time.
It is.
If you're in a good spot, but you're going in a bad direction, that's bad.
Yeah.
If you're in a bad spot, but you're going in a good direction, that's good. Direction is huge. And what strategy really helps you do is not only point which direction you want to go, but start moving in that way.
Yeah, you do.
How do I start taking those steps?
Yeah.
So let's look at the challenge portion.
Okay.
Now that we've talked about challenge, what would you say that these guys should walk away with when it comes to strategizing? Well,
I think what they want to do is understand that the strategy is a first step, but it doesn't do the work for you. You have to understand that. So you don't want to just pick a goal. You want to strategize how to meet a goal. So what I would encourage you to do is if you're going to set a goal, don't write it down until you've written down the plan of how you want to do it. You say, I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay, what's your plan? That's part of setting the goal. It's not just setting the goal. The 15 pounds is only the first step. You want to start strategizing and writing out, what am I going to do to actually reach this goal? You want to stay simple. And when you do that, that's why I don't recommend doing a whole lot of goals.
Yeah, I agree.
Because most of us are busy. We've got a limited amount of time. So if you say, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to learn a new language, I'm going to make $1 million, whatever, you're most likely not, and you're going to fail at all those. But if you say, hey, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to go on more dates with my wife. I'm going to go on 2 dates a month with my wife and I'm going to plan the whole thing. Okay, you've set some goals that I think are achievable, and as you do them, you'll grow in them and you'll get better.
Exactly. And guys, I would agree. Pick a max of 2 to 3 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go any further than that because we want you to really be able to use strategy to get your hands on this. Like you can't strategize and execute 12 different goals at one time.
Yeah.
As cool as that sounds, that would sound great, but it's not. The second thing is make sure your goals are about who you actually want to become and not just about making up for past failures.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's something that we talked about as we were making the show. We don't want to be stuck in a cycle of guilt.
Yeah.
And we've talked a little bit about how guys get stuck in that discouragement cycle. So if you have messed up many times, forgive yourself. Move on. This is a new day. It's a new chapter. And so we're going to continue through the coming weeks to help give you more legs to put on the chair.
Yeah.
And we want you to be able to take that step and not be held back by some sense of, oh, I've tried before.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't do it. You can. And here at Thriving Man, we do believe that every man can get out of survival mode and go into living a life that they're proud of. If you want to dive into more of that in our whole 4D model, you can go to thrivingman.com and check out all of our resources there. We've got digital courses. We've got free PDFs. There's plenty of stuff. We want you to succeed, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.